Hey folks, this week we're moving to Z-Wave, or at least Rob is, and then he tries to talk us into another Office option that you might want to check out. Then there's open source NVIDIA news, No View, or is it Nouveau? That's where the title comes from. Then we talk about Intel, and they are hiring, finally, some Linux engineers, and Nix is coming to Fedora. It's a lot of fun, you don't want to miss it, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is the Untitled Linux Show, episode 231, recorded Saturday, November the 29th. Confused by Vowels. Hey folks, it is Saturday, and you know what that means. It is time for some Linux and some open source. It is the Untitled Linux Show, and this is our special Black Friday. No, it's Saturday. What do you call the Saturday between Black Friday and Cyber Monday? Does it have? It seems like there should be a
business Saturday.
Small Business Saturday. I like it. There you go.
Where you're supposed to go shop at your local business, your hometown businesses, not your corporate-driven businesses.
Are there any local small town businesses anymore? It seems like not very many. There's a few, but
a few.
Well, anyway, that is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Linux, and Rob is going to start us out with a story that is not about Linux. That's all right. We love him anyways.
Yeah. 50-50.
I love you, man. I love you, Rob.
Don't tell me the odds.
Yeah.
This runs on an OS that is Linux.
It probably can. I'm
well,
sure
it's designed
possible.
Specifically for that.
Oh, really? Okay, Rob, take it away and tell us, what have you done in your house that is presumably, reportedly, Linux related?
So this is pretty much my review of the ZWA2. So a few weeks ago, I co-hosted Floss Weekly with Jonathan Bennett. And we interviewed the Home Assistant founder, Paulus Schausen. One of the things he talked about was the new Z-Wave antenna for Home Assistant that is a Linux operating system. Home Assistant OS is a Linux operating system for home automation. And this antenna is called the ZWA2, obviously. So it's something they just came out with and they're selling. At that time, I said that I went all Zigbee instead of Z-Wave. Not for any technical reasons. When I set up my stuff, I need to pick one. They seem pretty equal, so I just picked one. And I couldn't find any real big technical reasons to go one or the other. Well, my Zigbee devices have been hit or miss. Some would lose connections, and I have to reset them to get them back. And others would never get back on. The setup for Zigbee was problematic all the time, even from the beginning. The process is normally you hold a button for like 10 seconds or 15 seconds until some light flashes, and then you hope the Home Assistant would detect it. Sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes you're doing that over and over for a long time. So I finally decided, okay, I'm just going to buy the ZWA2 a few weeks ago. And I bought a few Z-Wave devices. I probably should have just started with one, but I bought a few. So fortunately, it worked out well. But I'll get into that because so far it's been a much better experience. And so my experience so far with the ZWA2 antenna, when I first hooked it up and passed through the USB through Proxmox to my Home Assistant VM, Home Assistant was supposed to automatically detect it. Now I did have a few problems here. I don't think it was anything to do with the antenna, but I'll get into that. So, because for whatever reason, it wasn't just automatically detecting it. It would pop up when I tried to add it through the interface manually. It would say what location is this, like dev TTY01 or whatever. I had some options, or I could type it in. It's like, well, I don't know where it's at. So I looked into it, and I went to look. The place I should be able to see where it was for a USB device is dev/serial/by-id. the location, I should be able to do it to find it, but that directory just didn't even exist. So I went into the system settings to reboot Home Assistant to the software way, and went down and came back up. So I'm not sure if this just resets the container that's on there and doesn't actually do a full system reset, because that didn't work either. So after a couple times trying that and poking around, I'm like, okay, let's just do a hard reboot on the whole VM. And then after I did that, it just showed up automatically. Even after it showed up automatically, I went in there and the dev/dev/serial/ByID, it showed it right in there. The USB device was there, and it showed me where it was over in the dev location. So whatever reason, it just wasn't showing up the first time. So that I think that might have just been some weird glitch at the moment. Not anything negative necessarily to Home Assistant or to the antenna. I think my Linux is just being weird at that moment. So after that, I add a device. I click add, and then you just scan a QR code on the device, and you scan it into Home Assistant with the app, and then it just showed up and worked. Way better than Zigbee was. Since then, I've already, this hasn't been very long, and I've already replaced most of my Zigbee devices with Z-Wave. Now, one thing I didn't know is if the Zigbee issues were with my cheap Zigbee hub that I have, or maybe the devices were cheap, though, is multiple different brands and everything just were goofy, or if it's the protocol itself. I don't know. That was my experience. But the funny thing is, after I had it all set up, I went looking for some more Z-Wave things to connect to my Home Assistant, and then I found they now have a Zigbee antenna called the ZBT-2. So if I waited a little bit, I could have just gotten one of them and see if my Zigbee devices I had would work better with that. Maybe if everything would just work great, I would have not have to swap everything out. I didn't have too many Zigbee devices yet, just because it's flaky. But
have you dumped all of your Zigbee stuff?
So I'm down to 3.
Okay.
I only have 3 Zigbee devices left to replace.
So what you need to do, I think you know what you need to do. You need to buy the Zigbee antenna now and see if you can run them side by side.
So, well, I know I could run it side by side.
Well, there you go.
I am running them side by side, just not with the antenna. I'll tell you what. If people donate a few copies, you don't need to donate the full price. Donate something towards it, and I'll chip in the rest and do it, because I'm curious, but I also don't want to throw the money into it. And then, I don't know. I like the Z-Wave so far better, but all of this is just to say I highly recommend the Z-Wave antenna from Home Assistant.
Yeah.
It reaches from the basement corner of my basement to the upstairs corner far into the house. No problem. And, even if my Zigbee were the issues with my hardware and not the protocol, like I said, the setup process was just so much nicer. So,
interesting. It's the antenna. It is an ESP32S3. That is the little microcontroller inside of there that's doing essentially it's just a USB serial bridge, but that's a lot of horsepower for just that. We're going to talk about that microcontroller later today, by the way.
The antenna, I measured it. It's hooked up, so I didn't bring it over here, but I did measure before it goes from my elbow to the knuckle right here. So it's more than a foot tall. So it's a decent antenna. It has a little glowing tip.
Nice. Very cool.
That you can turn on and off in the interface.
That's good.
If you don't like it.
Yeah, that's good. You need to be able to map something, because there's so many things inside of Home Assistant you could map.
I could. Yep.
You map the glowing antenna to you have a message waiting for you. Or
I could, except for right now it's in a corner where I'm not going to see it. But if I had that more in more of a visible place, that'd be great. You could map all kinds of stuff to it.
Mm-hmm. Make it flash when the AI talks to you. Something.
And just FYI, antenna length a lot of times has to do with the frequency and what pattern you want to come out of your signal. And So overall length.
RF is such black magic. Oh my goodness. It's
just a lot of math.
No, it's black magic. I'm pretty sure. When you start seeing antennas that AI designed that actually work, and all of the RF engineers look at it and go, "We can't figure out how it works." That's when you know that you're talking about black magic and not just math. Anyway,
back in my day, all we had was math.
Well,
I mean, that's calculus, and that's the way we liked it.
That's really all the AI is too. It's just really fancy math. Let's talk about some of the hardware that does all of that math and the software that lets you math the math on the hardware. Jeff has got a story about Nouveau. I'm going to pronounce it right because apparently it's insulting when I call it Novio. On NVIDIA hardware, what is the state of the art, Jeff?
I think we call it no view because there was a time when you were using that one, there was no viewing.
Yes, that's where where the joke comes from. The only person growing up, the only person I had to talk about open source stuff, he called it no view. And I think he was in on the joke. He just never told me that. And so I was like a year into doing this show that finally we had a disgruntled listener said, that's not how it's actually pronounced, right? No, I didn't know that.
Well, and we're not French. So that a lot of vowels in there can confuse us.
That's true. We Americans get confused by vowels.
I do think the show title should be Jonathan wasn't in on the joke.
That works. All right, Jeff, take it away.
So for a long time, NVIDIA's been in one controversy or another in, recent Linux history. Well, longer than that, but we're just sticking it to recent. The latest issue was the driver was not open source, and they didn't help the open source version of the driver. Nouveau never got any love from NVIDIA, not in recent history anyway. There's some old cards that they helped out, but again, recent history. For more recent cards, Nouveau driver was missing a lot of features. It was stuck at a lower speed. It could never really ramp up the cards. There was a whole lot of issues, and it just could not keep up with the proprietary driver in any way, shape, or form. Well, in the not too distant past, NVIDIA opened up their driver, kind of, a little, sort of. The code they put into the kernel is now open source, but there's still a lot of closed source bits which are loaded in as firmware. So source concerning NVIDIA, open source concerning NVIDIA is still kind of a very gray area. And yeah, it meets the letter of the law, maybe, if not the spirit of it. But I digress. The article in the show notes is dealing with benchmarking the open source Nouveau kernel driver using the open source NVIDIA driver stack versus the closed source driver. Now, there is an open source Nova driver from NVIDIA for the kernel, but it isn't ready for end users yet. It's still a little rough around the edges. The open source testing was also done, and it includes the latest Mesa NVK driver, which is the open source Vulkan API support code. And the NVK Vulkan driver is also used for looking into the OpenGL performance using the Zinc OpenGL on Vulkan driver, which is now used for OpenGL on modern NVIDIA GPUs rather than using the Nouveau Gallium 3D driver. So the Rust CL driver for OpenCL compute is atop the NVK driver as well. And this is fully open source, and the latest NVIDIA Linux driver support. So that was all compared to NVIDIA's official 580 series Linux driver. So both 40 series and 50 series cards were used on with three different drivers. There was the NVK, which is the out-of-the-box driver, is found in Ubuntu 25.10 with the 6.17 kernel and Mesa 25.2. There's an NVK Git, which is like it sounds, the latest, greatest code from November 24th. It's got the 6.18 Git kernel, and because we don't have the 6.18 released yet, and Mesa 26.0 development. So this is all the latest, greatest code that Michael Arable could pull out of the Git repository. So it's not released. It's not in a final finished state. And finally, we had the NVIDIA 580.95.05 driver. So Ubuntu 25.10 was the OS that these all ran on. And unless I otherwise stated, like I said, like the kernel, everything was out of the box, how it installs. So the out of the box NVK driver was just straight up Ubuntu 25.10. NVK kit was 25.10, and then adding the latest Git source, and then the NVIDIA driver was just how it installs on 25.10. Well, is it good news? Well, kind of, if you look at the long term. Right now, you can expect overall about a 50% less performance out of the open source driver than the proprietary driver. Compute is one area where some of the benchmarks in the open source held right in there with the closed driver, but others didn't fare so well. Now, why did I start out with good news? If you look at the long term, first, if you go back to the benchmarks like this that were ran in July, the 50 series cards couldn't even run. So there's been a lot of progress there. The second thing is out of the box driver is about 20% slower than the latest Git code. So that means that the latest code coming, there's substantial performance improvements in the pipeline. Now, there were a few benchmarks on the 470, which had some issues with the Git code, where the 480 ran just fine. The 5000 series card was a 5080. But this, Git code, not full release, like I said, there's going to be issues. So the fact it didn't run on a few benchmarks, not a ton, just a few, shouldn't be surprising. But if you look through where we were and where we're at, there's more working hardware. And just from the official release, I mean, there's a 20% increase improvement. So that's quite a bit. And there's headway being made and things are getting a lot better. So not where we want it, but the gap is closing and noticeable progress is being made. So I think the future is going to look pretty bright for the open source driver.
Yeah, very cool. And there's also Nova from NVIDIA. How does that fit into this? That's like their new next generation driver, right? The Nova.
Yeah,
Nova
they're kind of the way I'm understanding is the Novu is what's kind of used to it's the interim open source solution until the Nova driver is fully ready. Because like I said, it's not ready for end users yet. Mm-hmm. So they're still working on it. But my understanding, that'll kind of be the replacement for Novu.
Yeah, makes sense. Very cool. All right, Rob, did you want to comment on this, or are you still not enough of an NVIDIA fan to have anything to say?
Good luck.
There you go.
Well, and AMD now has a little more pressure on NVIDIA because they basically went to the open source driver as their, that's what they're, so everybody can get in and help optimize and make things better. So
one day you NVIDIA folks will be with the cool crowd.
It's coming.
Yeah, and that's why I hope compute fully catches up to speed. I hope their hardware catches NVIDIA's hardware for compute.
Yeah. All right. One of the other things we've been tracking for a while is the troubles at Intel, and how they have dropped lots of positions, not just open source stuff, but it has hit their open source teams pretty hard at Intel. And so I saw this and I thought, oh, well, this is good news and we should celebrate it. There are two positions open. Kristen Accardi talked about this on LinkedIn, hiring two fairly senior kernel engineers in Oregon, actually, so your stateside, looking for basically people to work on Intel optimized system software for the Linux ecosystem. That one's a senior level position. And then another kernel engineer for various OS internals for unnamed Intel device drivers. And both are rather nice as far as their salaries. Nice six figures. But I just found, and so obviously if anyone listening is an OS driver writer, if you have patches in the kernel and this is something interesting to you, go reach out to them and see if you are the right fit. It would be extremely fun to have a fan of the show there. But other than that, I just thought it was pretty neat to see that Intel, and at least some of their places, are on the hiring path and looking to bulk out their numbers, as it were, to bulk up their Linux chops once again. So not all is bad news there. It was good to see.
Yeah, hiring at Intel, that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah,
and I do want to preface that we say there was huge cuts, but there was also some voluntary packages. And depending on where you're at in your career, or if you think, maybe I might get cut, you were better off to take the package than you were to stick around and then get cut where you didn't get a package. So there are some people that left that probably would never have been cut, but they either said, now's a good time to get out because I'm worried about it. Or, sometimes you have a developer or anybody that's been there for, maybe 20 years, 30 years and go, I'm ready for something else. Oh, I get a bonus for leaving? Yeah, perfect time to jump ship.
I mean, sometimes folks just need a break.
Yeah.
The idea of a sabbatical, like let me work for 7 years and then take a year off. Like there's something to that. There is something to be said for finding a time to let yourself rest if you've been going 24/7 for too long.
Yeah. I wonder where these two roles, where they fit. And I assume they must be people who weren't necessarily pushed out unless they weren't doing a good job, but maybe people who kind of fall under that umbrella where they just wanted to leave or chose to leave for one reason or another.
Yeah, it's hard to say. We don't even know for sure that there was someone filling these roles previously. Maybe they're new roles as part of the restructuring. Not a whole lot of insight into this, but just get to see that it's there and it's a thing. I just saw something pop, and I'm trying to figure out if we need to talk about it and where. I think this might be a good place to slot it in. And that is that this weekend, so possibly before the majority of our listeners get to the show, 618 is going to release. So it is the kernel weekend, which is always fun and kind of on point for talking about Intel hiring on more people to work on this. Of course, there are some Intel stuff that have landed in 618. There's not a whole lot of really, really huge news in the 618 kernel. I'm not going to say it's boring, but
boring's a good place to be in LTS. When did they decide that? They decide that later, right? Not
it's
when
the
it's
last.
released.
It'll probably be this one because it's the last kernel released in the year, and the next kernel will carry over into January sometime. So 18, I'm pretty sure is going to be the LTS.
This article says that Linux 618 is anticipated to become this year's LTS kernel. And then, so we're about to open the 619 merge window. And then the other anticipation that people are saying is that we're probably not going to have a 6.20 because Linus Torvalds does not like big numbers. So we're probably going to have a 7.0 pretty soon next year. And so that will be fun to see too. The kernel numbers mean less than they used to, but it's still fun to see them.
Yeah, they mean more than other numbers and some other software applications that they choose to use.
It's true.
For anybody newer, it used to be that the whole numbers and like if you went from a 2 kernel to a 3 kernel, that was huge. That meant there's a big rewrite in there, and then they had the next number was only the evens were actually released kernels, and then so you might have a 2.2 kernel that was released. And then you have 2.3. That was like your RCs are today. And when the 2.3 kernel was ready to be released, it turned into a 2.4, for example.
Yep.
Then they said, "Nah, we're not doing any of that."
Who cares? Semantic versioning. Who needs it? It's for the birds. Yeah. All right. So up next, we've got Rob talking about another Office option. We're going to let him get to it right after this.
Hi, I'm Leo Laporte, host of This Week in Tech and many other shows on the TWiT podcast network. Can you believe it? 2026 is around the corner. So this, my friends, is the best time to grow your brand with TWiT. Nobody understands the tech audience better than we do. We love our audience, and we know how to effectively message to them. We develop genuine relationships with brands creating authentic promotions that resonate with our highly engaged community of tech enthusiasts. Over 90% of TWiT's audience is involved in their company's tech and IT decision-making. Can you believe that? 90%, 88% have actually made a purchase based on a TWiT post-read ad. No one comes close. We're the best at this. As one TWiT fan said, I've bought from TWiT TV sponsors because I trust Leo and his team's knowledge of the latest in tech. If TWiT supports it, I know I can trust it. You cannot buy trust like that. Well, actually, you can. You can buy an ad on TWiT. All our ads are unique. They're read live by our expert hosts, Micah Sargent, me. We simulcast all during the shows on our social platforms, so everybody can be watching live. One of our customers, Haroon Mir, the founder of Thinks Canary, he's been with us since 2016. Since 2016, he said, we expected TWiT to work well for us because we were longtime listeners who, over the years, bought many of the products and services we learned about on various TWiT shows, and we were not disappointed. The combination of the very personal ad reads and the careful selection of products that TWiT largely believes in gives the ads an authentic, trusted voice that works really well for our products. 10 out of 10 we'll use again. Thank you, Haroon. We love you, and it's been 9 years. That's the proof, right? Partnerships with TWiT offer valuable benefits, including over-delivery of impressions. You get presence on show episode pages, so there's a link right there that our audience can click on. We're in the RSS feed descriptions, a link there too, and social media promotion. Our full-service team will craft compelling creative to elevate your brand and support you throughout your entire campaign. I work on the copy myself to make it authentic, to make it real. If you want to reach a passionate tech audience through a network that consistently over-delivers, please contact us directly. partner@twit.tv. That's the email address, partner@twit.tv. Let's talk about how we can help grow your brand, or just go to twit.tv/advertise for more information. I look forward to working with you. Thanks for listening.
So, all right. So there are already a lot of good open source Office solutions available for Linux, but there are often aspects about them that, people don't like, things that people have trouble with, that it's a deal breaker for them for some reason to moving over. Well, now there's a new option to try, new to the desktop at least, but not a new Office solution exactly. So Collabora has been providing a web-based Office solution for years, and has been the choice partner for solutions like Nextcloud. Collabora Online is based on the core technologies in LibreOffice and is one of LibreOffice's largest contributors. You could almost think of it as a distribution based on LibreOffice, but online. Well, no longer is it limited to being online only, as they now have released a desktop app for Windows, Mac, and of course, that's why we're here, Linux. So if based on LibreOffice, why Collabora? First, what they say is a simpler stack. While still based on the LibreOffice core technologies, Collabora Office has no Java dependencies, which means a cleaner install, smaller footprint, and a single self-contained download. A quote from Frank Karlichek, CEO and founder of Nextcloud. This quote says, Nextcloud has a long-standing close partnership with Collabora, and we are pleased to have been able to bring our UX engineering expertise to help make Collabora Office more ergonomic and intuitive. This, combined with the strong privacy-first design and document interoperability, powers Nextcloud Office as an excellent match for our users and customers' needs. So in the past, the biggest complaint with open source options has been compatibility with Microsoft Suite. But these days, it's pretty solid for the most part. There's some things here and there, but I think a lot of people now just complain about the look and the user interface. LibreOffice is getting better, but I think the look is still kind of looks outdated. Excuse me, looks outdated. That is one area Collabora seems to shine. So let's have a look at the new app. So for those watching here on the screen here, this is a Collabora, the text base. So it has the ribbon, a very clean design. And, if I want to compare this with LibreOffice, this is what LibreOffice looks like. And it looks like icons from about 2001. I know there's themes and stuff, but default is king. Going back to Collabora, here's the spreadsheets, very clean look. Somebody coming from Microsoft Office, it's not identical, but the look would be very comfortable to them, and it's very, very, very streamlined, very sleek, I believe.
I was going to say it reminds me a lot of Excel, the spreadsheet program you have up. Very similar.
Yeah, and I haven't played with the PowerPoint alternative they have, but they also have that. So it's basically their word processor, their spreadsheet, and a PowerPoint alternative. If you hit File, Open, oops, I didn't want to do that. File, and then right here you can do a blank document, blank spreadsheet, blank presentation. They have a template too that already in there. So I think it's something that could be a very comfortable alternative for Windows users. And this is, I forgot, it's not like it's not their final release yet. This is our first initial, I don't know what they're calling it, beta maybe. But I think it looks very promising. It has a very clean, modern look. And now with a desktop and web-based offering, that could make it more and more like a Microsoft 365 contender. So that's new this week.
Yeah, interesting. I'm glad that LibreOffice still exists because I don't want my desktop to look like a Microsoft product. So kind of a downer for me, but that's all right. It's cool that it's out there.
I kind of like the interface because one of the things is I use LibreOffice all the time, and sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, there's 600 icons here. It's like, which thing do I need? And it's
cleaner.
Yeah. Now, was there any feature loss, or is it just
between the web interface or
between the core LibreOffice and this new Collabora?
I don't know. I don't know necessarily between the core LibreOffice. Between the web interfaces, there are minor changes here and there, but it's early days.
Yeah. So, one other interesting little tidbit: you talked about it getting away from Java, which is nice. Not only for a smaller download and fewer system dependencies, but it also gets you away from Oracle and it's sort of having anything to do with that weird, potentially problematic whole licensing scheme. I know Rob has probably run into this. We used to be able to just grab Oracle's Java SE and install it for people. And then suddenly they said, nope, you don't get to do that anymore. And the world sort of had to scramble to go, oh no, what Java do we use? And there's OpenJDK. You can install that on Windows. And of course, it's easy on Linux. But yeah, not being dependent upon that mess is kind of a good thing.
I've always hated Java even long before that. The only thing Java ever had going for it is its cross-platform compatibility, in my opinion. The fact that you could write once and pretty much run the same app everywhere. But other than that, speed and everything about it. And when I tried to learn it at one point, I had a class on it. I did great in the class, but I took the class on it in college and thinking maybe if I have a formal class, I'll actually like it. And no, I still hated it.
Yeah, no,
it's horrible.
I have not found that having a formal class on something has ever made me love something.
No, well, I mean, I bought books. I'm like, I gotta try to learn it. I was like, God, this is horrible. Maybe the books just aren't. Maybe I need somebody to formally teach me. It's like, nope, this is still stupid.
Yeah.
Jeff? Well, now, unless they changed it, you could get Java from Oracle. You just had to create like an account and say that it was personal and not going to be used for business and
Non-commercial use, yeah. Which
it wasn't just like, oh, download it. It was
by definition means it is not open source. That is a violation of one of the tenets of the open source model. So therefore, that is not an open source license. It's a source available license. Get that out of here. We don't want that.
I never got into Java programming, but I will say
Lucky.
Python, I wasn't a fan of it first until I got some training on it. And then I went, oh, I get a lot of this stuff now. And I love it. So learning more about it has improved certain things for me.
Oh, now don't misconstrue what I said. Learning more about something can make you fall in love with it. Yes. Getting a formal class on it has never made me fall in love with something. I very much enjoy learning about things, but not going to lectures with a bunch of other people in a formal classroom. That I have trouble with.
For my degree, I needed a class, and I'm like, well, let's take this one. I've always wanted to figure out how to learn Java, and I just struggled by myself. And
there you go. All right, Jeff, let's talk about colors. What's new in colors in Linux?
So what do we say a ton on this show, and it seems to be creeping into everything.
HDR.
And a lot of people don't take advantage of it. If you were thinking of two vowels, no. I'm thinking HDR. Valve has jumped on the trend and is now supporting a color pipeline API, and it's finally ready for upstream entry into the kernel. The major amount of work has been on the AMD Radeon driver for a couple of reasons. One is the Steam hardware and the Steam Deck and the Steam Machine, both use AMD hardware. There's also been some hardware capabilities which are recent in the AMD hardware. So they've just added some hardware features in this last generation or so. They've had 13 revisions of this code to make sure it was working as intended before waiting to submit it into the kernel. So initial implementations are for the AMD GPU DRM driver, as well as the virtual KMS or VKMS driver. And Valve had a note describing this, which I won't read because it's describing hardware functions in the AMD DCN version 3 or later. Unless you're a driver coder, I don't think any of it will mean anything to you. I know it sure didn't for me. Also, I will say the DCN is the display core next, and it's the architecture for AMD's modern display engine found in their GPUs and APUs. And it's a flexible hardware pipeline designed to handle display-related tasks, from processing pixel data and managing color to outputting signals to various monitors, things like that. The code is in the DRM next, so that's where you put your code to get included into the kernel. But it's late in the cycle, and normally the cutoff for making it into the kernel is at the previous kernel's RC6 stage. So it probably isn't going to make it into 6.19. The thought is it will probably hit kernel 7, or like we said, what everybody thinks is probably going to be 7, unless Linus changes his mind, which has happened. So what does this do? Now this is something that I'm not sure everybody realizes. HDR is not just a switch you can turn on, because there's a lot of different color content sources. There's a lot of different color profiles, different color gamuts, and the support still needs to be there for the standard dynamic range. So it's not just, I'm going to open it up to 32-bit color and away we go. No. There's also a wide range of display devices, and they don't all show color the same way. So this code also handles an interface to be able to handle a wide range of color profiles. So basically that means when you see a specific shade of green, it will show up on different hardware and for others as the same shade of green. There's also other benefits to handling color, which are a lot faster than the current software methods. The API is already supported in Valve's GameScope, which is a compositor which is built to optimize games. Because it's so focused, it's sometimes referred to as a mini compositor. KDE KWin and Wayland Weston implementations also support the new API. Now that the color API interface has been solidified, expect a lot more compositors to support the new color interface. So you can take a look at the article linked in the show notes for more details and links to the original presentations on what's happening in the hardware stack with the different supported features. And they go in and explain in there how all this other stuff and what building blocks in the hardware it interfaces with. But again, unless you're really kind of into the driver stuff, I don't know as you get much out of it, but the information's there if you care to look. Mm-hmm. So I think I can say that the future's looking bright and colorful.
The future's looking bright. Aha. This is mainly to do hardware-based HDR rendering, right? Like
yes,
accelerated HDR.
Yeah, right now there's kind of some software. It's handled a lot in software, but hardware can do it just about instantly for almost no overhead. So it'll speed things up there, and it's just a common interface for HDR. Is not just HDR because there's so many different variations of it.
Right. Yep. It's unfortunate that we will probably not ever see, Dolby Vision? Or if we do, it'll be half of forever until we see it on the Linux desktop. That's another one of those HDR implementations. Probably not going to happen anytime soon. I'm going to talk about why.
Because that's probably licensing.
We're going to talk about why. We'll get there. Let's unpack this nut right after this.
Hey everybody, it's Leo Laporte. You know about MacBreak Weekly, right? You don't? Oh, if you're a Macintosh fan or you just want to keep up what's going on with Apple, this is the show for you. Every Tuesday, Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell, and I get together and talk about the week's Apple news. It's an easy subscription. Just go to your favorite podcast client and search for MacBreak Weekly or visit our website, twit.tv/MBW. You don't want to miss a week of MacBreak Weekly.
All right. So as I was hinting about, we're actually talking about patents this time. And for those of us that have been around the Linux desktop for a while, software patents are not our friends. So let's think back through this history of software patents and the things that you couldn't do on Linux for the longest time because of them. One of the ones that annoyed me the most for years and years, and this still will get you depending upon what you want to do, you couldn't listen to MP3s because MP3s were patented. And most of the distros, for legal reasons, were not willing to ship code that, in theory, violated those patents. It was not that very many years ago that finally the lawyers at places like Red Hat signed off on it and said, okay, it's been long enough that no matter what legal shenanigans, MPEG LA or whatever licensing group used, no matter what legal shenanigans they use, those patents are finally old enough we don't have to worry about them. So now we can listen to MP3s on our Linux desktop. It's really great. Now that the entire world has moved past MP3s, we finally have support for them. Another one was compressed texture uploads for video cards. It was another bit of patented technology. And that was a problem in Wine for the longest time. At Wine and also your video card driver is these games would have compressed textures and you just, for legal reasons, weren't allowed to upload them. We still have some problems with patents. And if you dive into things like the HDMI, what is it? Is it 2.1, I think? I don't remember the exact numbering, but AMD cards just can't support it because of the licensing. And well, guess what it is that's behind a lot of those licensing issues is the patents that get used. So it's still a thing that is with us and is painful from time to time. Well, what's the news today? The news today is, or this week, is that the U.S. Patent Office is making a change that unfortunately is going to make it a little bit harder to challenge bad patents. So this is one of the things that companies have done, companies and individuals, open source people have done over the years, is when one of these patents gets written and granted that is an obviously bad patent, they're able to challenge it through an IPR, an inter-parties review, which basically is where someone says, hey, I have documented evidence that says that they were not the inventor of that patent. And you can do an IPR. You can send it into the patent office. The poor, overworked people at the patent office will look at that and make a determination of either, yes, this is sufficient evidence, or no, it's not. And bad patents have gotten dismissed and thrown out as a result. The new change is the change to that IPR, which says two things. One, if someone files an IPR against a patent, they give up their right to litigate about that patent. So it's a they sort of dismiss their future claims with prejudice. And the other change is that if a patent has been tried, if there's existing case law regarding a patent, then you cannot do an IPR to challenge it. You can only challenge it in court. And so this really narrows the ability to use this particular, and an IPR is basically free. There may be a small charge, but it's not anywhere compared to the huge cost that it is to challenge a patent in a full court. That is expensive. And so what this change does is it narrows the usability of this IPR process, which, again, unfortunately, is one of the few ways that individuals and small companies have to challenge a patent. It doesn't make it impossible, but what it does is it means that if you're going to do this, there has to be some strategic thinking, let's say, because what you would need to do is make sure that the IPR challenges come first, and then if they get thrown out, so you have to, IPR challenges has to come first, and not from the people that would then want to litigate the patent, right? It has to come from like third parties. And then if that fails, then you would have to go into litigation against the patent to try to get it removed. And so it turns the whole thing into even more of a minefield than it absolutely is, which is really unfortunate because software patents are such a terrible idea and have always been a problem. So that's my legal rant for the day. Hardware patents, not so bad. Software patents, garbage and need to go away.
Hardware patents even need a limited shelf life. But I can tell you a lot of cutting edge stuff. There's companies that don't patent things because once you patent it, it's public knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So they just keep it internal and keep it hidden. And
because there are companies in other countries. I won't exactly name which one. We know which country. They don't care if you have a patent on it. They'll still make it in their factories.
Yeah. Trade secrets.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's why you won't find Colonel Sanders' 11 herbs and spices on the patent anywhere. Patented, It's...
Indeed.
Yeah, you had to go to TikTok for that.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if we would ever be able to do it. Goodness, right now we can't get our politicians to agree on the color of the sky. It seems like in the United States and around the. What's that, Jeff?
I was going to say we couldn't get him to agree on removing daylight savings time.
Indeed, yeah. The United States and around the world, we could really use a review on intellectual property because copyright is insanely too long, and there are works that are literally being lost because you can't preserve them because it would be a copyright violation.
Off topic, I don't think the real problem with daylight savings time is that they can't agree to get rid of it. I think they can't agree which way to go.
Yeah.
That's
but they can't agree.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And that's one company that kept copyright going longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, it was
until
Disney.
they realized that they could trademark things, and trademarks don't have a limitation like copyrights do. But you're right. Google tried to save a bunch of books and digitize some old ones, and there were people that, you're the rights holder to this book, and they had no idea because their great uncle twice removed had written something in 1935, and it was a little book that never went much of anywhere, and through people dying and natural, here's a family tree. Oh, I guess you're the next in line. You own this, and no idea.
Yep.
Or
crazy.
they can't even find who now's the rights holder, so it blocks them.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, that's enough of that. kind of a macabre topic, let's move on to something a little bit more cheery. No, it's not more cheery,
No.
is it, Rob?
No, something at least a
No.
little bit more Linuxy. Somebody's trying to call out people for doing non-Linux shows as a law segment.
Well, it's Linux adjacent. I was hoping for some cheer, though, Rob, and you're not bringing any cheer at all.
No cheer. We're losing a popular Linux distro. So it's a Linux story. It's an Android story. And what I'm talking about, it's the future of ChromeOS. So ChromeOS is about as close to a Linux distro as you can get without being called a Linux distro. It's much closer than Android for sure, because Android is based on the Linux kernel, but it pretty much ends there. It's never listed in the official numbers, but unofficially, ChromeOS adds a few percentage points to the Linux desktop base. So I like to call Linux desktop. But if Google's plans work out for them, we will be losing ChromeOS as a Linux distro. As Google's new Aluminum OS, or Aluminium OS, as some of you out there might call it, project brings Android to the PC. So, well, again, it's not like we haven't had Android x86 available for PCs for years, but this time Google is doing it. A year ago, Google quietly began reshaping its desktop ambitions. Instead of keeping ChromeOS and Android on separate tracks, the company decided to fuse them into a single platform and push Android directly into the PC world. A recent Google job listing spells out that this is an Android-based operating system for laptops, tablets, detachables, and small box PCs built with AI at its core. It's
that's exactly what we need. That's what the world needs, is desktops with AI at their core, because that's working out so well for Microsoft right now. Sorry,
I thought we were going to avoid those two letters.
We tried.
Yeah. So anyway, it's tightly linked to Qualcomm, with both companies pitching this as a way to merge mobile and desktop computing and bring Google's full AI stack to them. Or, in my opinion, they could just go straight Linux on the desktop and phones, merging them together. If you build it, they will come. Do the right thing, Google. Remember your old mantra? But to continue with the story here, the plan for Aluminum OS or Aluminium OS, it's not just for cheap hardware. The roadmap calls out several tiers: AL Entry, AL Mass Premium, and AL Premium, alongside their Chromebook and Chromebook Plus tiers. That tells us Google wants Android PCs that span from budget to high-end machines, directly challenging Windows, macOS, and Linux. That wasn't called out in this article, but I had to throw in there. Obviously, it's challenging Linux too. Maybe it's not really, but instead of staying in the low-cost Chromebook niche where they have been. But, it's not like they haven't tried the premium market before with their premium Pixel books that mostly failed, though I know Jeff Jarvis loved his. So the same job listing says the role will manage both ChromeOS and Aluminum OS, while also developing a strategy to move Google from ChromeOS to Aluminum without disrupting businesses and schools that rely on Chromebooks. In practice, that likely means legacy ChromeOS devices get maintained until their normal end of life. Some newer Chromebooks, like those with MediaTek Companion 520 or Intel Alder Lake chips, may be eligible for an optional upgrade. New devices, though, will eventually ship with Aluminum OS outside of the box and will hopefully fail. Boo to Aluminum OS. Internally, engineers are already labeling, using the label like Chrome OS Classic and non-Aluminum Chrome OS, hinting that Google might keep the Chrome OS name even if the underlying system becomes Android-based or alternatively marketed as some form of Android desktop. The exact branding still is undecided, but what is clear is the timing. Google is testing Android 16 builds on development hardware now and has confirmed a 2026 launch window for Android on piece. Given that schedule, the first public Aluminum OS release will likely arrive on top of Android 17, marking the moment Google tries to turn Android into a full spectrum desktop platform. Much of the story reminds me of the Apple memes, where iOS comes out with a great new feature that Android already has, and they pretend that, hey, we invented this new thing, because almost a decade ago, when I was working in a computer sales and repair store, we sold an Android desktop computer. We sold like one. We only sold one. That's all that anyone ever bought. We had a few more in stock, but we sold one to an older guy. It worked out really well for him, but it never became popular. So it's not like it hasn't been done before. Android x86 has been a thing anyone could install and play with for years. That never really took off. Anyway, my point is, it's been done. It's never really took off before, and I hope this initiative doesn't take off either. Just go pure Linux. Stop the insanity. Do the right thing, Google.
So I'm imagining the way that this meeting went at Google's corporate level. Some very excited somebody up there in the halls of power went, I know the perfect name for our new AI. Did you know that there's an element on the periodic table that uses AI? That's its elemental symbol is AI. And it's AL, but your font, you just can't tell the difference. We have this all the time over on Hackaday because we have Al Williams, and Al looks like AI. And so this article written by Al, not AI, gets us all the time.
And it should be aluminium. It's spelled the British way.
Oh, is it spelled the British way?
Probably because of chromium, right?
Chromium,
it's intended to rhyme. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, somebody thought they were being super clever with this.
So much cleverness going on here. It's
so much clever.
Because the English ends in NUM and the British version ends in NIUM. And that's how they have it spelled, at least in the article anyway, is with the extra
I beat you, Rob. I beat you. I heard him start typing like
you did beat me.
I beat you.
I was scrolled up so I didn't see it. Yep, I was exactly that.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. All right. I'm not super excited over the aluminium desktop either. It's bad enough running Android on my phones. I will at some point look, I think, a little harder into the Linux phone idea.
Well, sure. And we've had stories earlier this year about how they're making Android worse. So,
yeah. It's not coming from my desktop, not anytime soon. All right. We have a story here in just a second from Jeff about desktop stuff that we can absolutely get behind.
And it's Linux.
And it's Linux this time. We talk about that right after this.
Hey, everybody. Leo Laporte here, and I'm going to bug you one more time to join Club TWiT. If you're not already a member, I want to encourage you to support what we do here at TWiT. 25% of our operating costs comes from membership in the club. That's a huge portion, and it's growing all the time. That means we can do more. We can have more fun. You get a lot of benefits, ad-free versions of all the shows. You get access to the Club TWiT Discord and special programming like the keynotes from Apple and Google and Microsoft and others that we don't stream otherwise in public. Please join the club. If you haven't done it yet, we'd love to have you. Find out more at twit.tv/clubtwit. And thank you so much.
So KDE has had an announcement this week that they're going to drop support for X11 in Plasma 6.8. Now, we're currently on Plasma 6.5, and 6.6 should be released in February, if the schedule holds. Now, this means that X11 will be supported, if you extrapolate out the suggested timelines, into early 2027. Again, if the schedule holds, That's just projected timelines. There could always be a shift in releases, technical errors, whatever. But KDE's been fairly decent about holding pretty close to that. There's even talk that maybe they would support 6.7 a little longer with some X11 bug fixes and patches, but that's not been fully decided. So right now, early 2027 is the end of X11 on KDE. Now, if you really need to have X11, they suggest there are still long-term support releases, which you'll be able to run. And the example in the article they give is Alma Linux 9, which includes X11, and it'll be supported until 2032. So if you have X11 X11 applications, they'll still work using X Wayland, and they're not removing that. They're only removing the ability to run on anything other than Wayland. So your favorite X11 application will still work. It's just running a compatibility layer, kind of like Wine does for Windows programs. You can think of it that way. Accessibility is one area where Wayland is working hard to make sure there are no gaps. KDE says they're up to the X11 standards for accessibility features. But if you have third-party programs, the same can't be said. There's some third-party application accessibility apps that may or may not work. The article linked in the show notes does ask that if you have accessibility features that you need and it isn't already covered, let them know, because they're very interested in improving this aspect of KDE. They want to make sure that KDE is accessible for everyone, no matter what disability you might have. So, if you see a gap, they definitely want to know. Now, for those who don't know, Plasma 6.4, they split KWin into two programs. They've got KWin Wayland and KWin X11. So it makes this split easier, because what they'll do is they'll just stop including KWin X11. So why are they doing it? So they're saying that while splitting KWin into two pieces helped development a lot, there's still many other areas of the desktop which are held back because of X11. So there's a lot of, like the frameworks, for example, there's just having to always include the X11 code that's causing them kind of some heartaches. So they say that dropping X11 will help them be more nimble and agile and save on resources as they have less back ends they need to support. Now, it's also going to get harder and harder as more distributions keep dropping this. And yes, you have your LTSs, but they won't have the latest kernels. And so as X11 kind of fades out through a lot of distributions, even testing this is going to become more of a challenge. You take a look at the first article in the show notes for more details, and you can see links to the reference documents and a lot more information on what's going on and why they're doing this and some behind the scenes stuff. Now I have a second article which is talking about KDE 6.6, because, we had a couple stories without Linux, and I thought, you guys need some more Linux news. So 6.6 is coming. They're not at a feature freeze yet. So what I'm telling you here is kind of the foreshadowing what's coming, but there could be more, because it's about, I think it's mid-January, if I remember correctly, when the feature freeze happens. There's several things to look forward to, though. There's global actions going forward for going forwards or backwards 5 or 30 seconds in playing media. There does need to be support built into the app, but a lot of them already support the API. It's now possible to configure order of the icons on the logout screen. There's more polish in the XDG portal dialogues. The screen and window chooser has been simplified and improved. The Kicker application no longer quickly flashes no matches found after you search for things, even if it did find something. If you have a QR code in the clipboard and it happens to be showing, and if you clear the clipboard, it will now also dismiss the QR code as well. It didn't previously. There are several other fixes, improvements, overall bug squashed. So take a look at the second link in the show notes to see them. And as there are a ton I didn't cover for just the sake of brevity, and they even cover in their frameworks 6.21 fixes and changes. And they do mention that framework 6.21 is really going to start showing some of its feature set in 6.6. So a lot of good things coming. And I must say, I'm continually impressed with the continuous improvements in KDE. They're really doing a lot of code work.
Yeah. So I remember, and you may as well, there was a blog post over on Pointed Stick from Nate Graham talking about when is Plasma going to lose the X11 session? I couldn't help but think about that. I went back and I looked, and he says, yes, it'll eventually happen. At the time, there was no firm plan as to when. This was July of this year, by the way. It wasn't actually that long ago. It was like 5 months ago. Yeah, like 5 months ago. He says, yes, the writing is on the wall. It'll eventually happen. But as for when Plasma will drop support for X11, there's currently no firm timeline for this. I certainly don't expect it to happen in the next year. Well, it's happening in the next year. Early in the next year, even. Certainly don't expect it to happen in the next 2 years, but that's just a guess. Depends upon how long everything works. And then I want to say that they talked somewhere in here. You talked about 7.0, but I'm not sure. I can't find it at the moment. Maybe we just mused at the time that meant that they were going to stay with X11 as long as they had the 6.x releases. But anyway, all that to say, this happened a lot quicker than people expected, even KDE people expected. And I wonder why. Like, there's the obvious reasons. And we've talked about here a time or two that X11 is losing its few paid contributors. That may have a lot to do with this, actually. Red Hat was employing some people that because they were still actively supporting Red Hat Enterprise Linux that shipped with X11, they were still paying some people to find and fix bugs in it. And that is, I think, no longer the case, or is about to no longer be the case. It may have a lot to do with this. But yeah,
I think also as the feature sets diverge, like HDR, it's not trivial to try to wedge HDR into X11.
Yeah,
and
it becomes more and more of a burden to make the old code continue to work while you're adding new features. For sure.
So I think it wouldn't surprise me. That's driving a lot of it. And with a lot of distributions, at least hinting in the background, they're going to start dropping X11. I think it was just kind of like, hey, you know what? Let's get on this bandwagon too. And there's just that much less that we have to support.
Yep.
And like I said, it's going to get harder to test as a lot of distributions start going, okay, we're dropping X. So, okay, how do we test it? But we need the new kernel and new libraries, which a lot of this, version whatever is going to required to build off of. And
yeah, it's going to settle some debates about whether your distro should support it or not. Should Fedora continue to have an X11 build of KDE? Nope, not after this.
I don't know if it settles debate if they should. They may still say they shouldn't even after they go to it, but
yeah, well,
it's amazing. Like when I saw this online, how many people was like, "Well, I guess I'm leaving KDE." It's like, I don't know. I advocate for Wayland, maybe too harshly on the internet. I'm like that internet guy who argues and just keeps jumping into the conversation saying over and over, I really need to just copy and paste this because I say the same thing over and over 100 times a week, but there's just so many reasons to move on.
So what we'll eventually have is it's the same thing. Like you have some people that really don't like systemd, and so there are distros that are formed around this idea of I don't want systemd. I want to use one of the old init systems, and that's fine. Like I have nothing against those. Just I don't want to run one of them, but I have nothing against them existing. It's like I have nothing against X11 code running out there. People just need to acknowledge that it's not actually being fixed. There's not actually security vulnerabilities getting patched. And so run at your own risk.
Niches.
Well,
niches and mainstream should, do the right thing.
Yeah. What sold me on Wayland though was because, and I mentioned this before, the X11 people that were working on it said, we have to totally tear it down and rebuild this to put these features and security in. And they're the ones that started Wayland. And I remember some of those early talks and stuff, and it kind of boiled down to a lot of people saying, well, you need to do this. And it's like, you don't understand the architecture.
Mhm.
It's such a convoluted mess. You can't, it's a house of cards, and you can't touch anything without breaking 20 others.
Yeah.
And Wayland was a result of that. And even if you're not a fan of Wayland, the people that were working at X11, that's who built it. And that's where they went. Nobody's, everybody abandoned the X11 house.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you can't believe the developers of X11 and Wayland, who are you going to believe?
Yeah.
The internet.
Yeah.
And not me on the internet.
Not me on the internet. Yeah. That's
Well, they even talked about it one time. X11 had its own printer driver and was halfway to becoming its own operating system. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is just.
we got to stop. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, Jonathan, I cut you off.
No. I was thinking, like, what was it? If you don't want to trust these guys, what was it before X11? Was it the old X windowing system before it was X11? Something like that.
Yeah, it was an
wasn't-
X86.
Yeah, that's right. XF86. Yup.
Yeah.
I see. I heard that.
Back
You know
in
what that sound was from Rob? That was the sound of, I remember that, but that was a long time ago.
And there was a lot of manually going in the command line and editing files to get a real graphical display going, other than your basic.
That was the same sound. That was the same sound that old Ben Kenobi said.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. I have not heard that name for a very long time. It's the exact same sound as what Rob just made.
Well, the fact that it started with X, I guess I didn't realize that it was something different. But I definitely remember XF86 and the configurations. I just thought they made it better and then changed the name a little bit.
It forked.
It was a fork, yeah.
Is that what it was? I never.
X386 forked into X.org.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think X386 was a fork of something else.
So it's still kind of based on the same code. It's just forked and
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, those were the fun days.
Now that X11 code is really forked.
No.
Yes, it is. Okay, I got to stop this. I started going down the rabbit hole of tracing out the history of X on Wikipedia, and that is I don't have time for that tonight. All right, we do have one more pair of stories to cover. These are a couple that I found. One is a bit troubling, and the other one is pretty cool. So we're gonna get the bad news first. It's not that bad, but it could cause problems. So the bad news here is that the Rust for Linux co-maintainer has formally stepped down. Alex Gaynor is formally no longer a Rust for Linux maintainer. He has sent in the patches to remove his name from it. And that means that we are down to a single maintainer for the Rust for Linux project, and that's Miguel Ojeda. Now, this is actually not as big of a change as it sounds like, because Alex has not really had the spare time to be able to work on this code for quite some time. That's why we say formally steps down. But it is, even that being said, it is a bit of a problem that there's only one project leader for this rather large and important bit of code in the kernel. There are a few other people that help review patches, but at this point, Miguel is the only one that really is a maintainer of it. And that's a lot. It's a lot of code for one person to be responsible for. So one of the things as we sort of look forwards that's going to be interesting to think about and look at is, where is the Rust for Linux project going to go? What direction is it going to take? Because you can imagine a future scenario where Miguel steps down as well, and the Rust code starts to bit rot. And we know that Torvalds has no problem pulling out code that's bit rotted, and so nobody's using this anymore. So out it goes. That is very much a possible future for the Rust for Linux code. It's not necessarily where things are going, but it would be good to see more people stepping up to both write and help maintain that code. So that is the bit of the downer news. And then there's something pretty cool for me. This is for me. It's cool. I don't know. There's only a few of you out there that really will get excited about this. In Fedora 44, we are getting the Nix packaging tool. And I believe that is going to then open the ability to install all of these Nix packages. And Nix is interesting in that its package manager, it has the ability to run single user package installs, which essentially it's almost like how an app image or a Flatpak gets installed, where you just install it for the local user. So really interesting. And so this is coming to Fedora officially in Fedora 44. You'll be able to DNF install Nix, and then you'll be able to Nix install the various things that are out there. So it'll work like a pip for Python and those sorts of things. One of the reasons that this is particularly interesting for me is that right now there is someone that is trying to officially package Meshtastic D. That's one of the other projects I work on for Nix. And so once that happens, it'll be just a couple of commands to be able to get that officially installed on Fedora. And so that's fun. I'm looking forward to that. But there's a lot of other Nix related things that are out there that'll be fun to be able to get on Fedora. And it's just cool. It's cool to see crazy stuff like this finally, working and someone said, well, why don't we do it? And
does any distribution by default use Nix?
NixOS.
NixOS, yeah, that's the only one.
But yeah, NixOS and the Nix package managers, not anything I've ever tried. Something I definitely should, because
put it on your coffee list.
Want me to try that? I'll wait to put out that challenge. But yeah, I mean, what's awesome that I've read about it is that it's a reproducible declarative configuration. So when you install all your packages, at least with NixOS, I'm assuming it's the same if you have the package manager somewhere else. Once you install everything and have it configured, you can take that configuration to your next NixOS and have it be reproducible, the same thing. And I don't know if that's a feature of the package manager, meaning that anywhere you have that package manager, you can run that configuration, or if there's something missing in just a package manager that limits you from having that the NixOS has. I like I said, never tried it, but I should.
Yeah, the way I read this is you're going to be able to install the Nix packages as they're compiled by Nix inside of Fedora if you want to. So I mean that I would think that would give you the same reproducible builds. So
yeah. So 2020, I'll throw it out there now. 2026 challenge for me. Throw on the coffees if you want me to do it, and
you got to put on there in the fine print. This coffee buys a NixOS.
Yes, it's actually a one that I've wanted to try.
Well, there you go.
If you do that, also put in there this. I want you to try the NixOS, but I want this coffee to go to either Jeff or Jonathan. Make him work for it.
Make him work for it. Yeah. All right. That is our news for the week. Quite a bit of it. Some good stuff in there. We've got some tips. We have got some command line tips, and we're going to get to them right after this. Okay, so on the tips, Rob is up first. Rob, you don't have one. Is it a surprise? Did you intentionally do this? You want to surprise us with what your tip is?
I forgot to put my tip on there, huh?
Did you forget to pick a tip, though?
I did not forget to pick the tip.
That's good. All
As
right.
he frantically looks through his notes.
It's here somewhere. I know it is. I can't remember what it was. Where'd it go?
Yeah, I have it open already. I just I forgot what it was. I'm like, what is it called? What is it called? I'm drawing a blank. It's on my notes. And I'll have to add it to the show notes. So my surprise tip of the day is a command line tip. It is called Podliner. So I'm just going to bring this up here. I already have it open. So this is a I don't know if it's TUI or what, but it's in the command line with a command line graphical kind of interface, something like TUI, whether or not they use that technology or not, to do podcasts. So for those watching, I've already loaded the Untitled Linux Show and Floss Weekly into this, and also this is kind of like the Vi or Vim of podcast. It's of podcast applications. It took me a little bit to actually realize this, and you guys can't see that because my name is there, but there's a little command line spot right at the bottom, which I'm going to adjust this.
There you go.
Oh, okay, you got that. Okay.
I have a button. I push the button.
That'll work. So there's a little command line here at the bottom. So at first I was having a hard time figuring this out. So because I'm running this in a GUI, I can actually click around on stuff. But being a command line, I need to know how to use this in the command line. So I figured out that if you do :H, it's going to bring up your commands. So it tells you all the things to do.
It's the illegitimate son of VI and Midnight Commander.
Right. So it's not even necessarily all the commands now that I think about it, because to add, it's like :add, and then you put the URL to the RSS feed. And that's how I added these already. But to play, I figured I have this first one selected. I hit spacebar. It's going to play. And I don't have my audio piped over to the show here, but you can see you can't see the little timer because I'm in the way now. Let me get me out of the way here.
You can see the bar going across on the bottom.
Okay, you can see that. Let's just get me out of the way here, though. So also you can see the little timer going now. It's 11 minutes, 23 seconds in. So that said, it takes a bit to figure out the navigation. Honestly, I haven't figured it all out myself yet, but I figured out how to get it to play a podcast. So if you're making some kind of device and you want text-based only or whatever, you got Podliner, and that can be used for your to play your podcasts in the command line.
For extra geek points, do it over SSH. So have your Raspberry Pi connected to a Bluetooth speaker and SSH into the Pi to run Podliner.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's the way to do it. You have a little Raspberry Pi hooked up to a speaker, and then you SSH in and do what you do.
Voila. That's fun. That's a lot of fun. All right. Let's see. Jeff, you are up next with SS.
And something funny, I was going to put in a joke command line tip for Rob, and I looked it up, and it's like, oh, that's a real command. So I added one into the pile to go, I accidentally stumbled across one.
Well, okay, what's the joke? Why is it a command line tip for me, though, before you?
Because it was blank.
Really, oh, because
I had a blank, and I was going to fill it in the show notes for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's real. I'm keeping that for myself. But my command line tip this week is SS. And in the man page, it's listed as another utility to investigate sockets. SS stands for socket statistics. Basically, it's used to dump socket statistics, and it allows showing information similar to netstat. It can display a lot more TCP and state information than other tools. Usage is pretty simple. For example, to see all TCP sockets, just type SS space -T space -A. And if you wanted to do something like find all local processes connected to the X server, it would be SS space -X space SRC space /temp .x11 -Unix /*. And you could even filter by ports using SS space sport SPORT space equals space :80. And if you even want really a lot more filters, you can do things like list all the TCP sockets in state fin-wait-1 for our Apache server to network 193.223/24 and look at their timers. Yes, I cut down the IP address. You don't need to hear me say that. And I'm not going to read that command because it's a little bit long, but you can do very specialized things. And actually, SS is the nets. They say it's the netstat replacement, and it works faster than netstat because it doesn't parse the log files or large files, but it talks directly with the kernel. Which now it's not an issue on a small machine, but like if you have a large enterprise server and maybe you got 100,000 connections, netstat can be a little slow and take a lot of CPU cycles. So if you take a look at the man page for SS, as it should be in most distributions, or look at the link in the show notes for more information on this handy little networking tool.
Very cool. I like it. Always useful to have more tools for doing that sort of thing. All right. My command line tip comes from kind of a weird spot. So I got sent to the mail a couple of these things. This is the SuperCon badge from the latest Hackaday SuperCon. And this is an ESP32S3 and a LoRa chip. And as soon as I heard what was going to be in it, I said, oh, send me a couple. I'll put Meshtastic on it. And we have indeed ported Meshtastic to it. Probably can't see that, but it is indeed there. There you go. It's a good one to show. The time is. Anyway, one of the other guys hacking on this badge, though, sent in, yeah, I'm SSH'd into mine. And we went, you're what? Oh, yeah, you can run Linux on these now. And I went, wait, you could. That's what my wife said, Wizard. Like, badge? That's not a badge. No, it's not really a badge. Anyway, I went down this rabbit hole. Wait a second. You can run Linux on the ESP32S3? And apparently, yes, you actually can. And there is I've not done it yet, but there's a guide here on how to compile Linux for the thing and actually make it happen. And apparently, it is indeed possible to compile Linux and run it on one of these, which blew my mind. And I figured that the folks here would be sufficiently geeky enough to really appreciate that fact as well. So not exactly a normal command line tip, but still very, very cool to be able to do that. So Rob, your antenna can probably run Linux.
So when I buy the Zigbee one, just to test out and then decide I don't really want to use it, I'll figure out how to get Linux on it.
There you go.
So dual reasons to donate.
Exactly. Would be fun. Oh, all right. It has been it's been a blast of a show. Thank you guys for being here. Doing a little bit of double duty today. But it has been a lot of fun. I'm going to let each of the guys get in the last word on something if they want to, or maybe tell us some poetry, or maybe remind us where to go to donate coffee. Jeff gets to go first.
Nothing to cover, so it's going to be Poetry Corner. This one's short but sweet. Keyboards are violent, rodents are green, RTFM, if you know what I mean. Have a great week, everybody.
I like it. All right, Rob.
All right. Roses are red, violets are blue, Linux is fun, and so are you. Just made that up on the spot. I am that.
We could tell. All
right. But for those who want more poetry, like that one,
it's not the greatest sell, man.
or to find out how to donate a coffee to get me to do one of those crazy wild things, you can go to my website, robertpcampbell.com. On the website, near the top, there are links to my LinkedIn, my Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, and a little coffee cup where you can donate coffees, which is $5 increments. So you don't have to donate a whole like $8 coffee, just a $5 coffee, or two $5 coffees, or 10.
As many coffees as you want. All right, very cool. Thank you, guys. You can find me at mainly Hackaday these days. We've got Floss Weekly there, and that's a whole lot of fun. There's also the security column, goes live on Friday mornings, and you can find, probably going to take another week off around Christmas time, but other than that, you can find me there covering the Linux and otherwise security news. Other than that, just want to say thank you. Appreciate everybody that's here, and those that watch, those that listen, whether you get us live or on the download. And hey, we'll see you next week on the Untitled Linux Show.